There are some lies in our science books. Taught it for 15 years. Even though I'm not teaching it anymore, I still like the study. It's so many neat things to learn. We're going to cover some of that tonight.
Perception is being managed. We are being steered and guided by a hidden hand.
The whole world has been duped by the media that is not real.
Smart thinking, possible time traveler, smart thinking.
That night, boom, contact memory.
And then, Alex, if you don't agree, you'll be sent to a re-education camp.
Just because I'm old doesn't mean I've lost my touch with the ladies.
A lot of people here tonight felt like they lost. You know why?
Now, experts are suggesting that we're in a golden age of shape-shifting reptilian sightings. Now, why is that?
I was, and still am, a huge conspiracy guy. I literally ran out of new tin hat topics to research.
It was most definitely not capable of melting steel.
Then I would be a crackpot if I thought that was the case.
Welcome to the Hypothetical Institute, a podcast about conspiracies.
My name is Luke.
My name is Cam.
There is no Salt, but he might be with us soon. He's just trying to sell his car.
He's going to sell his car, buy a bike, join the cyclists.
You've seen the error of his ways.
Yeah.
How you going, Cameline?
I'm Luke. All the better for speaking to you, my friend.
Oh, same, mate. Same.
Hey, what are we talking about this week?
We're talking about a young man called Robert Kennedy Jr.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Yeah, what does the F stand for? Do you know?
Oh, Frederick is my
failed at the first hurdle.
Yeah, not so great. Robert Francis Kennedy.
Okay.
We have talked about his dad before.
Yeah, who was his dad, Cam?
His dad was Robert Francis Kennedy Sr.
Yeah. Shot by Sirhan?
Yes. Or was he?
That came up. Did I post this somewhere? Did we talk about this? A professional skateboarder or someone professionally skateboarding adjacent, I think a former professional, has gotten cooked, and he's tried to connect the dots between the very first ever photo of people skateboarding to the photos of that assassination, and that it's all part of the CIA, and that photo's tied in.
Yeah. How does the assassination of RFK tie into skateboarding?
One of the people in the photos,
because if it was the assassination of JFK, I could understand. It's like, yeah, they're doing. You can see him doing sick ollies off the grassy knoll in the background.
Yeah. It's a little bit crowded to do it.
The grind. Everyone focuses on like the guy standing behind the fence, and no one ever looks at the guy grinding along the top of it.
No one's looking at the sick grinds going on. Let me see if I can bring that up, and maybe I'll chuck it into the news as a little teaser for later on. Unfortunately, yeah. All right, let's circle back to that one. So we've talked about his dad. We've talked about his uncle.
Mm-hmm.
What about him?
He is. Look, this is a podcast about conspiracy theories, and he is a conspiracy theorist. If I could read from I think this is his political views section on Wikipedia, he subscribes to a number of quite wild conspiracy theories. Kennedy has said the American government is dominated by corporate power. He said that the Environmental Protection Agency was run by the oil industry, the coal industry, and the pesticide industry. And he's described the Food and Drug Administration as overly dominated by Big Pharma. So this guy's just out there.
Mm.
Can you imagine?
Carry on.
So the weird thing about, we were like, let's do a thing about RFK Jr. because this thing about his brainworm has come up, which is quite funny. And we're going to talk about it, and I'm going to ask you to explain it to me because I think there has to be a little bit more to it than the headlines.
Everyone has fucking dropped the ball on this, so yeah, we'll stay tuned for that as well.
I was like, all right, let's get to the bottom of RFK Jr.
Yep.
Because I only really know him as being an anti-vax lunatic of late. And he's running for president, and he's been a bit off tap about COVID, but he's been an anti-vax guy for a long time. I didn't realize that he had like this guy that could have been president, basically for realsies, not just pretensies. Except he's got a little bit of a past. He got pinged for heroin in his youth. He's had a few things, like he wrote a book about it, how his cousin who went down for murder was innocent. So these are things that might get brought up in a presidential campaign. But he's he was being tapped to run the EPA not that long ago, in the mid 2000s. Obama was like, let's get this guy in charge of the environment.
Let's get a Kennedy in here. It's always worked so well.
Yeah. So
maybe for Obama, it's like it'll take a little bit of heat off me because he was getting a lot of threats against him.
Yeah, let's spread the love around. And the fossil fuel industry, when it was suggested that they might get Kennedy in, they lost their marbles because they're like, we can't have this guy. He's going to stop us from dumping things everywhere.
Yeah, he's actually aggressively, as a lawyer, pursued us a lot, and with quite a bit of success, I believe.
Yeah. He did have some controversies as an environmental activist.
Yeah, go on.
There was what was his little group called? The Riverways people? They did have a thing where the River Keepers, they wanted to sack some guy who'd been doing environmental crimes, and he took on the board to get this guy back. It's like, all right, that's a little weird, but Kennedy's going to Kennedy.
Yeah,
he'd mainly been fine up until he learned about vaccines.
Yeah. I think reading the Wikipedia I went from top to bottom on him.
Yeah,
and it's a longie.
That's one way. That's one way to do it.
Yeah, it's probably the most popular way, and it's quite a longie. But I was kind of reading it and going, a lot of, if this guy had some control or some power in the government, it might do a lot of good for the environment. The environment needs people to aggressively help it, and he has done that for maybe some of the ways he's done it haven't been great or whatever, but he has done a lot of good for the environment. Is that fair, or am I just being naive?
No, I think that's fair.
Yeah,
and it's definitely I would say Kennedy. We joke about reading top to bottom on biographies of people. If you read bottom to top on this guy, it's no good. It's bad news. By the time you get to him suing people for river health, it's like there was a lot of bad shit. You go top to bottom, it's not so bad.
So yeah, the whole thing around aggressively against the military-industrial complex, the erosion of the middle class, critical of the Saudis, these are all pretty good things. And then you get to him comparing lockdowns to, that's right. During the lockdowns, he said, even in Hitler's Germany, you could cross the Alps into Switzerland. You could hide in the attic like Anne Frank did.
Yeah.
And that's when things start to kind of really get off the rails a bit.
So, but the thing is, and I think we've talked about this before, he's always sort of believed in a few conspiracy theories, and that seemed to be we've talked about normal people who went off the rails during COVID. They believed in a couple of little conspiracy theories. Often JFK was one of them. And so it's sort of there was a little opening there for things to get in. I mean, this is a guy who's not only does he subscribe to JFK conspiracy theories, JFK's his uncle.
He might really know where the brain ended up.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I watched an interview he did with Bill Maher, who I have to say is a dipshit.
Yeah,
but
I saw Bill Maher interviewing Bill Burr. I don't really know anything about Bill Maher at all, but I saw a Bill Burr interview with him, and it was just snippets. And Bill Burr just kind of openly hates him.
Yeah,
and Bill Maher thinks he's palling around. Bill Burr's just it's really quite funny. Sorry, carry on.
He was explaining his conspiracy theory about the assassination of his dad, which is is a little bit weird for someone to be talking about the assassination of their own father. But he's like, it's just sort of rambling and all over the place. And at the end, Bill Maher's like, well, you've convinced me. It's like, well, Bill Maher, we need a higher bar to clear here than it convinced you. But I don't know. It didn't convince me, but then I read a little bit more. And I was like, I don't know. Maybe there are some questions. So I think we did talk about the assassination of RFK Sr. in quite some detail way back when, right?
Yeah, we did. We did that whole thing for sure. Maybe I'll go dig it up and have a listen, and I'll circle back next episode with so I just pulled up the skateboarding adjacent one, and it's quite a long rambling thing about Tony Hawk as a Freemason, and there's a whole conspiracy around the photographer of things and bellboys, and Bobby Pullio is the skateboarder who's gone off the deep end. So maybe I'll circle back to that. It's the news show next week.
Yeah. Also, when RFK Jr. says, I went and spoke to Sirhan Sirhan in prison, and I came away convinced that he hadn't killed my father. And it's like, so what did he say? He's like, but I can't say. It's like, well, I don't find that especially convincing.
Yeah.
But just the basic facts of RFK Sr.'s death, like the autopsy that they made extra careful that we don't fuck it up like we did the JFK autopsy. So let's get it all correct. And they're like, he was shot in the back of the head. And everyone who's in the room says, well, Sirhan Sirhan was in front of him.
Yeah, right.
That does make me a little suspicious. Although I do think it was probably just like one of his bodyguards, like with JFK, has accidentally shot him.
Do you think that about JFK?
That's one of the theories.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
As it was like a Secret Service guy, like, whoop.
Yeah. Fumbling for
probably.
Yeah.
I don't. You don't want to be like, you can't have some like secret. If you've got like someone who's actually actively trying to shoot someone, you just put them in jail or kill them in the jail or whatever. You don't need to like drag some Secret Service guy through it.
Yeah, right. Their intentions were good.
Yeah.
Yeah. They just happened to shoot the president.
They just happened to cop it. Yeah. They copped it up.
Yeah. So I kind of found the origins of him getting cooked. Well, I didn't say I found it. I think it might have been on the Rogan interview. So a lot of people found it when they listened to Rogan. But basically, it might have been another interview. Anyway, he was doing a lot of public speaking around waterways and them poisoning people and all the runoff and all that stuff. And he said everywhere he went, he'd always meet these women. I think he kind of comments on their looks at one point, which is a bit weird. But they all would come up to him at the end of it and say, "Oh, my children are sick from all these pollution."
Yeah, all the fertilizer in the water. So first, where like he's already cooked. He's like, "Oh, the agricultural industry, the industry in general is poisoning people somehow." It's like, okay, Robert.
I don't know at what point you're crossing over into a bit of So he kind of got this reputation amongst whatever sort of network or unofficial network of people communicating that he would listen to them about their kids getting sick or potentially getting autism, which is where Sarah Bridges comes along, and the story he tells is she drops a whole lot of stack of papers on his doorstep and says, "I'm not leaving until you read this." And that's he realised that's when he needed to trust women, or he'd realised that earlier because all these other women weren't lying. It makes it sound like previously he didn't trust women. And then he also says how he's good at reading science. So he read all these papers, and then that's when he learned that vaccines cause autism. And then that's kind of started his whole crusade. And Sarah Bridges is quite a famous case. I think she successfully sued, or there was some sort of group that was kind of adjudicating medical cases, and she got a payout for a vaccine harming her son. They never said it caused the autism, but there was a payout that she received for that. I think the official payout was because it damaged the son's brain or whatever, something like that. So that kind of seemed to have kicked off his whole I'm an anti-vax guy. And then, yeah.
So then he really went for that.
Yeah, so during COVID is probably when he really, and for a lot of people that's when they really baked their old noggins. He put out a documentary called Medical Racism, The New Apartheid.
Mm-hmm.
There's a really good article on NPR. It's called Anti-Vaccine Film Targeted to Black Americans Spreads False Information. And basically one of the stories in this article is he goes to a researcher, a lady that is has done a lot of research or is actively researching how black women were targeted and basically medical racism, all the awful things done and historically and how bad it was. And she didn't really know what she was speaking to. So they said, we want to interview about your field and, it's for a documentary. And so she gave an interview. And then she said interestingly said they were really conscious of COVID. So they cleaned the house before, like they got in there, they cleaned the house thoroughly. They all had masks. They let her in. They did the interview and then they cleaned everything down again. And so it was really like, wow, these people are really, give a shit about COVID.
Yeah, they're conscientious and COVID aware, COVID safe.
And then she saw the documentary.
I had to think about it because I haven't heard anyone say COVID safe for so long. I was like, what did we used to call it when people gave a shit?
Yeah. And then the documentary came out, which is Medical Racism, The New Apartheid, and she realised she had been duped. And they were using her to speak, sound bites of her saying that medical racism exists and her expertise to give her their theories around vaccines credibility. And the other one they lean on a lot is they tied it into the Tuskegee syphilis study, which again I think was a horribly racist thing where they give a lot of black men syphilis, basically.
Yeah.
And yeah, awful stuff. And so tying in this whole vaccine thing into racism and saying that you need to, what they're doing is medical apartheid because of all this, segregation and all that stuff. I think there was also, I can't remember if this was tied in, I think it might have been with the theories that the vaccine was targeting certain races differently. So Chinese people, and this might have been an Alex Jones that I watched, Chinese people and South American people weren't impacted because they share a common bloodline or something. And yeah, so there has been all these reports over the years or theories over the years that you could build a bioweapon that just targets a certain race.
Yeah.
And in this case, this is what they've done. And I think, that's right, the health outcomes for some minorities in the US and black people were really bad during COVID because, all the inequality that
because of structural racism.
Yeah. But then they're using that as evidence. People like RFK use that as evidence to be like, see, it's targeting specific races, and you need to care about this. Pretty like fucked stuff to be, doing all of that as presenting that as a documentary and hitching yourself to the wagon of really legitimate causes. And we've talked about this before, how people like this, and QAnon is a great example, they stuff it up for people actually trying to get things better.
Yeah. And for people who genuinely can't have the vaccine, it's not helpful to have a bunch of people who could have the vaccine.
Yes.
Making it seem like not being able to have the vaccine or being vaccine injured is this like loopy thing.
He's also gotten onto the gay frog gear. An interview with Jordan Peterson, this is from Wikipedia. He talked about gender dysphoria, linking it to atrazine contamination in the water supply, citing the study that Alex Jones has famously cited for yelling about gay frogs. Yeah, so he's gone onto that gear. He also...
if I was Jordan Peterson, I'd be like, let's just steer clear of frogs as a topic.
Why? Because he sounds like a frog?
Because he sounds like Kermit the Frog.
Jordan Peterson, I don't know if we've talked about him that much on this podcast. Oh, he sucks so much. Yeah. Like, watch any interview with Jordan Peterson and you're just like, this guy sucks. How does he have any sort of following? He also has a whole peanut allergy thing. He was a founding member of the Food Allergy Initiative. His son has anaphylactic peanut allergies, and he wrote the foreword to the book The Peanut Allergy Epidemic, in which he and the authors falsely link increasing food allergies to children to certain vaccines that were approved beginning in the late 80s. So he gets into all sorts of gear, really.
Mm-hmm.
And then he got a fucking brainworm.
Yeah, so, Robbo, please tell me the true story about the brainworm, because I do find it... I've seen a lot of he got a brainworm lol sort of gear.
Yeah.
And
so
there was a worm in his brain and it ate part of his brain, but I did feel like there had to be something a little bit more to the brainworm.
Yeah, so I think that the main story that the media has run, because why wouldn't you run with this? This guy that's cooked has admitted to having a brainworm. Great. End of story. Haha. What an idiot. He basically claimed that this brainworm, he got a brainworm and mercury poisoning. He was eating too many tuna sandwiches. Just mad for those tuna sandwiches. And that gave him some mercury poisoning, and at the same time he also got a brainworm, maybe from his travels to South American and African countries, or he might have been eating some of the fucked meat they have in America, which, is just riddled with poison. And he said
maybe he could have, at some point, he could have stood up and said something needs to be done about the agricultural industry. We need to clean this up. So this is the ultimate irony.
Well, yeah, this is. I want to talk about this a little bit because he sort of claimed this, and this came out recently, but he claimed it back in 2012, and he said that the brainworm and the mercury poisoning caused memory loss and brain fog, which was impacting his potential earnings power. It's going to impact how much he can earn in the future, which is a strange way to think about. When you've got a disease, you don't think this is going to. Well, maybe you do. This is going to affect how much I'm going to earn in the future.
Well, didn't all this come out in the context of like divorce proceedings?
It 100% came out in the context of divorce proceedings and how much he was needing to pay his ex-wife in alimony.
Yeah.
His ex-wife, during the divorce proceedings, later died by suicide after his sister, I think, visited her, and basically they were putting pressure on her to drop it all. But yes, awful. Like by all accounts, she was being treated awfully, and unfortunately, couldn't see a way out, couldn't conceive of a way out, and died by suicide. He had only ever claimed this brainworm mercury poisoning during that trial to get out of paying money.
Yeah,
it was a legal defense. As far as I can tell, and I looked through every article about this, I couldn't find any evidence that a doctor had said this. There was no medical records tabled or anything. It was just his word.
Yeah.
So he's claimed it as this, he claimed it in the most awful way. It's come out now, and everyone's like, oh, lol. And he's like, oh, no, I'm actually better. Doctors have cleared me. We're all okay. And everyone's just gone, yeah, that's a funny thing. This dickhead's got a literal brainworm. But really, it's an awful story that resulted in the death of his ex-wife. Not the lol that you think it's going to be. Now, the mercury poisoning. So anyone that's involved in the environment in any way, if you're really passionate about the environment, you know that fishing and commercial fishing is like one of the worst things that are happening right now.
Yeah. And this is coming from Robbo. He comes from a long line of fishermen.
Yeah, I've unloaded tuna boats as a job before.
There's a book about Robbo unloading tuna boats.
I'm not in the book, but my dad is.
Yeah.
So, adjacent.
Mentioned in the book. When he's unloading the tuna, he's like, oh, my ungrateful son left. Left to go become a beer writer.
The most noble of careers. So, anyone that's aggressively against or pro-environment, I don't like to eat a lot of fish. And if I do, I like to really know where it comes from. If I'm eating tuna in America.
Not a great advertisement for the Westport docks, to be honest.
Well, to be honest, you can't buy local fish in this town. It all gets processed here, frozen, then shipped to the city, and then sent overseas. If people want local fish, they order it from the place, and it gets shipped back from the city to here. So the infrastructure is broken. It's a very bad infrastructure. If I'm eating tinned tuna in America, I'm going to assume it's coming from literal slave boats, like a lot of our fish does in Southeast Asia and China. So, like, you have to know that, man, if I'm into the environment, I'm not going to be eating. Oh, and I guess the other part is if it's net fishing, I don't think tuna is caught in nets. Maybe it's all long lines. But industrial fishing processes are just ruining the seabed. I guess the other part, so if you're eating tuna, you know it's probably pretty bad for the environment. This dude ate enough of it that it poisoned him.
Yeah.
The other part of eating fish is everyone knows that eating too much fish, especially things like tuna and sushi, it was really bad because it does have a high percentage of mercury because of how fucked the environment is, that will get into your blood. And I think that's kind of a known thing, maybe avoiding too much.
Well, because his big thing was about how much mercury there is in the vaccines.
Yeah, not only the vaccines, Cam, also in coal as well. So if you open up his Wikipedia page and you Control F mercury, it's mentioned 16 times. It's only one of those times
is it related to his own mercury poisoning. But it's like, he might have thought, well, if I'm not taking the vaccines, I've got some wiggle room for how much mercury I can ingest.
Yeah, that's true. I can really ramp up the mercury intake. Anyone that just a guy like him on paper wouldn't be smashing all this tuna and also would be really conscious of all the mercury.
Yeah.
But he managed to claim mercury poisoning and so he claimed that it was long-term, severe short and long-term memory loss and mental fog. This is all from the deposition, both of them. A worm had been eating a portion of his brain. I did a little bit of research. So one of the things a lot of the articles did, to give them some credit, is talk to actual experts. The New York Times was, I think, the first article about it. And they did talk to a lot of experts and be like, can this actually happen? And all the experts were like, not really, not like this. No. It won't eat your brain. You can get them, and they kind of talk about what the parasites were. But again, that's a lot of energy to put into the story without going, actually, is there any evidence for this at all, or was he just trying to get out of paying some money? I've just found the quote from her about his wife. So Kennedy's sister, Kerry Kennedy, allegedly visited Mary Richardson, who was his ex-wife, 3 days before her death. This is according to a book, to address finances of the divorce. Kerry was said to have been putting intense pressure on Mary that night, and in the weeks before, to sign Bobby's divorce settlement agreement, described as a very bitter, harsh, and draconian proposal, limiting Mary's custody of her children and slashing her financial support. Kerry had hammered constantly at Mary to sign Bobby's settlement and told her, "There's not an endless pool of money. You're making everybody broke." That's from a Politico article, Politico.com. It sounds like they just pressured her into suicide.
Well,
he's also got a titanium throat.
Okay, I was gonna say thumbs down. But tell me about the titanium throat.
Have you heard him talk?
Oh yeah. He's got like a wobbly voice, right?
Yeah, and I think that would, there's that kind of, you said at the start is he might have ended up president though. There's not a non-zero chance, and I think this probably would have, a lot of voters' minds probably not worked in his favour. No. America's all about strong presidents and all that stuff, and it's a very wobbly voice, as you said. He basically, it's a health condition, spasmodic dysphoria, that causes vocal cords to squeeze too close together. He told an interviewer last year that he'd recently undergone a procedure in Japan to implant titanium between his vocal cords, to keep them from involuntary constricting.
Mm.
Again, he told someone that.
Yeah. Yeah, let's see the doctor's note.
Yeah.
I will just clarify. I do think that at one point he could have been president. I think that the fact that he's like, I'm going to become the president and I'm going to dismantle the CIA, and that he is saying that out loud and not, from beyond the grave, suggests that definitely the CIA doesn't think there's any chance that he'll be president, and I'll take their word for it.
Yeah, I guess a lot of the vaccine stuff he is very, very wrong about. And if you want some good evidence about why he's so wrong, there's a really cool little YouTube video, which I think is part of a larger podcast. It's Beyond the Noise, number 7, Vaccine Misinformation with RFK Jr. And it's hosted by a guy called Paul Offit. And he is basically one of the world's leading experts on vaccines and safety. And this is from his Wikipedia. He's co-inventor of the rotavirus vaccine. So he's got a vested interest, really. But he's an advisor to many organizations on vaccines. And he gives a really good breakdown of what's actually in vaccines, mercury and all that stuff, and how it actually works. It's really interesting. So I can recommend checking that out if you want to see a good side of, vaccines.
The other thing I was sort of looking at with RFK Jr. is that he wrote a whole book about his cousin being framed for murder.
Right.
Which was the Martha Moxley case in the mid-70s. And this is a little bit of a strange case. This murder happened in 1975. His cousin, Michael Skakel, was convicted of it in 2002.
Right.
So there'd been a little bit of evidence that suggested that he might have been involved, but it took them a very long time to charge him. And then he was found guilty, put in jail. He appealed. He said that they should have held the trial in juvenile court because he was 15 at the time of the murder.
Mm-hmm.
And he also said that his lawyer wasn't very good. I think the key bits of evidence against him were that he went to the Alan School in Maine afterwards, which was like a sort of famously abusive boarding school that was involved in they had like a cult practices, not a cult, just it was a bit of a cult.
Right.
Where they'd get the students to beat each other up. I think maybe the guy from Screeching Weasel went there, just to put into context for you, Robbo.
Okay.
The abusive boarding school that the guy from Screeching Weasel went to? Now you understand what I'm talking about.
Didn't the guy from Screeching Weasel get massively cancelled?
Yeah.
And
this guy got cancelled too. They cancelled him all the way to jail, mate.
Right.
But some of the other students at the school said, this guy said that he'd committed a murder and I'm going to get away with murder because I'm a Kennedy. It's like, you're not a Kennedy, you're a Skakel. Just calm down.
Skakel does not have the same gravitas that Kennedy does.
No, but he did eventually, he got convicted and he did eventually appeal and sort of get out because I think his lawyer was pretty shithouse. There were witnesses who said there were other potential suspects that they could have looked at. His main defense was, I wasn't doing the murder. I was being a peeping Tom and masturbating in a tree at the time of the murder. So it couldn't, at the victim's house, so it couldn't have been me, which is not the best defense of all time, I have to say. But RFK Jr. wrote a whole book about it.
Right. He's written a couple of books.
He has. He's a prolific author.
Didn't he do push-ups to show that he was stronger than the two other presidents?
He might have, yeah. And he's sort of ripped, right?
Yeah, I've got my Spotify has got a picture of him because I was listening to the Rogan podcast with him. I guess it's a still of a moving video. And yeah, I can see a gun, as in a bicep.
Mm.
Some of the commentary around his brainworm were he's running on this campaign that he's younger and stronger than the two other guys, and the brainworm probably doesn't help his cause, but he's probably still going to be right.
Yeah.
He's still going to be stronger and I guess cognitively more awake than the other two.
I will say, just looking at RFK Jr.'s bibliography, pre-2020, just perfect cadence of publication. You know, just every few years, every few decades, put a book out.
Yep.
And then 2020, 2021, 2022, 2 books in 2023. That's too many books, RFK Jr. You're publishing too much.
He is the ultimate guy that got cooked during COVID.
Yeah.
He is their chance at the White House.
Yeah, except he's not.
No, what's he polling like?
I don't think. Well, I think it's like just it's not possible for a third party candidate to win the presidential election, so it doesn't matter. I think he's right now. He's polling at 0.
Okay. There's a poll that says 71% of people want RFK Jr. and third parties in the debate.
Yeah.
The way this headline is phrased, it probably just says they want third parties in the debate.
Yeah.
And he, it doesn't say, it says they want JFK Jr., third parties.
Well, it also reminds me of when they put out a poll saying 90% of Americans believe in conspiracy theories. And then you read the question, it's like, do you believe that corporations have too much control of the government?
Yeah. So I think it's a very leading question that's probably been asked for that one.
Alrighty.
Are they doing a debate, the two?
Yeah, well, Biden said, yep, I'll debate him. I think Trump was like, oh, well, I don't know about that. And he was the one that was calling for debate, so they'll debate. You can't have a presidential election without a debate.
God, what a broken situation. Should we do some news?
Yeah, let's do some news. Oh, we don't have Salty. I thought he might be here by the news so we could get some production value.
Do you want me to play the House Martins Caravan of Love?
No, don't play the entirety of the House Martins Caravan of Love that you've loaded into the soundboard. The House Martins, Fatboy Slim's band.
Yeah, a little bit of House Martins trivia.
House Martins fact. Item number 1 here in the news thread. Lauren Southern.
Oh, yeah. So, you know Lauren Southern, right?
Yeah.
What's your understanding of what's happened to her?
She was a rising star in the alt-right.
Yep.
She made a bunch of cook documentaries. She got name-checked in a Great Replacement conspiracy theory that she popularized, got name-checked in a Mass Murderers Manifesto. She moved to Australia, married an Australian guy, had a baby, and then discovered that a trad life was not so crash hot, actually.
Yes, yeah. So she disappeared for a while she was doing all that, and then she came back and wrote or was interviewed. Did she write something? Basically,
yeah, she's done a few. Periodically, she'll pop up with a video about. She's done this a couple times now. This last one was sort of the most explicit one, but complaining about how badly she's treated by the misogynists that make up the political movement that she'd attached herself to.
Yeah, and so there's been stories about her, and I've seen there's one guy on Facebook that I'm friends with that. The articles are kind of, he shared this and it's good that she's finally seeing the error of her ways kind of a thing, and trad wives are the whole thing is toxic, and it almost kind of letting her off for her realizing that she's an awful person and she was in an awful toxic relationship, and the ideology that she was pushing, because she's realized that is awful, she's now okay. And so she's kind of getting sanitized back into the conversation, because she was kind of in the conversation with all those other alt-right fucking dipshits.
Yeah.
And so they're kind of it's almost like a thin end of the wedge of oh, maybe she's, maybe we should listen to what she has to say because she's been through this awful, awful toxic marriage and it might help others. But you go into her fucking YouTube channel and she's still doing the same garbage gear. She's still just an awful person, but it's managing to dupe people into thinking, oh, maybe she is reasonable. But no, she just realized that she's got in a toxic relationship, but she still sucks.
Yeah.
Don't if you see a Lauren Southern thing letting her somehow back into the media conversation, don't let it happen.
No.
Yeah.
The next item here, this is an exciting one. Hidden Melbourne.
Oh yeah.
Robo, this was I got a notification about this on my phone that there was like a Reddit thread popping off.
Mm.
And it was started by you. And I was reading it.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is a great Robo would love this. And then I was like, hang on a second, Ale of a Time.
Yeah.
Oh, it was Luke Rules.
Luke Rules.
How many people obsessed with beer and Melbourne and scams called Luke Rules can there be?
Oh, maybe 2 at the most.
Mm.
But I'd be the best one still.
You uncovered a massive scam, and there is a bit of a conspiracy linked to this.
Yeah, these people are ripping people off globally.
It's just an actual conspiracy.
Yeah.
It's not a conspiracy theory. Yeah, all right, go on.
Yeah, so you might remember the Karen's Diners, which I think are still going in some form. And I wrote a whole blog post about this, so jump onto aleofatime.com to read it. But basically, the people
that was
doing...
the diner where you'd go in. I barely knew what a Karen's Diner was. But was that the diner where they'd give you like bad service?
Yeah, and they'd abuse you, and then you'd give them some lip back, and everyone would have a fun time.
Yeah.
It's a concept that I think has happened in the US. There's a couple of famous places that did it. The documentary maker John Safran did it. He did blackface when he went to one.
Yeah.
Remember that one?
Yeah, I do. He got away with it.
Yeah.
I think there have been some attempts to cancel him over that since, but he's uncancelable. But yeah, it was like a food truck where they yell at you.
So Karen's Diner was a version of that kind of insult place, like an insult comedy restaurant.
Yeah, but it didn't work.
No, it didn't work because they just kind of expanded. There was no oversight, and they just were hiring people that were just wanting to work in a restaurant. They thought, I can be mean to people.
Yeah.
And the result is just like people were called. One guy was there with his family, and the waitress kept on calling him a pedophile for being close to his daughter, and like that was the only joke that they really had.
No, they needed to be hiring like out of work stand-ups.
You got to get stand-ups, and like again, there's probably 98% of stand-ups that would also be awful at it. Like it's such a hard thing to find people to do. So it got really toxic, and then it went bankrupt. In New Zealand, I know they left owing a lot of people money, and I think it's the same in Australia. They are still running events in the UK, I believe, but this company, these 2 guys that formed it, they have gone on to do other viral experiences where they've done Alice in Wonderland themed cocktail nights, adult ball pits, Lego themed burger nights, and there's hundreds of them, and they just seem to scattergun them out there. There may be a couple of cities they seem to operate in. I think Pittsburgh was one of them, Vancouver in Canada, and Melbourne, Brisbane, and one in the UK, or a couple in the UK. I don't really know why they're centered on those cities, but they keep on running these pop-up events that don't exist.
Yep.
Or if they do exist, they fucking suck. And if you search like hidden experiences or experience hidden on Reddit, you'll find all these people going, "Yeah, what the hell? I got ripped off." Just turning up to events that didn't exist, basically.
Yeah, or if they do exist, it's like the Willy Wonka thing from a few months ago, but
absolutely.
bad.
That might have even been them. I didn't actually check cross-reference.
No, I think that was his own guy, but it's like they're doing those, but without like the magic of using any AI to create villains.
Yeah. They've got multiple different names for their companies. There's like Viral Experiences, Hidden Melbourne. I've got all them sort of on my blog. But they did a beer festival. They tried to start a beer festival that was called Unlimited Beer Fest. Unlimited Beer Festival. The first red flag is you can't call a beer festival that. Having unlimited alcohol as a theme of an event is a way to not get any licensing approved.
Wait, so how do they do bottomless brunches?
I'm not sure.
What's the loophole? What's the loophole?
I think because there's food, there's probably a way that you can word it so
because they're like, oh no, we just meant the waffles were bottomless.
Yeah, or you have to order X amount of food, and this is the way. But I think there might have been some that have ended up having licensing pulled or something.
Yeah, and also those are like 2 hours.
Yeah,
unlimited is for eternity.
Yeah. You paid. I think it was like $20.
Yeah,
was the tickets, or 29. What they weren't expensive, and I guess the other part of that is that you're going to spend that 20. Like everyone's going to be losing money on this, except for the people getting wasted. Because like with wine festivals, the wineries don't pay tax on the wine until they sell it. So if it's samples, they're not paying that tax.
Oh.
Breweries are paying tax on it once it becomes beer.
Yeah.
So even samples they have to pay tax on. So
a little bit of bitterness creeps into the voice towards the wineries.
No, if you want to get shit-faced in Australia, go to a wine festival, not a beer festival.
Yeah.
I've left wine festivals way drunker than I have left beer festivals.
But it's like, for $20 a pop, how, unless you don't actually put on the event, how do you make any money from that?
I don't think you do. You don't. So they're selling tickets. The website looks shady. There was reviews for the festival that had never happened. They'd emailed me because they're trying to give me free tickets for promotion. I still get a lot of PR stuff from Melbourne. Yeah. I reckon there's beer.
I imagine whoever lives in your house is pretty happy.
Yeah, there's definitely beer still arriving on the doorstep, I'm sure. When there's no one in there, I'd message a friend of mine and say, hey, go check with my front door. There's probably beer there today. But yeah, so I kind of pulled all of the dodginess apart and put it into a blog post, and then a few other people picked up the ball and started contacting the venue. I'd contacted one of the breweries, and they were like, yeah, no, we're not involved. The other three breweries that were tied to it immediately pulled out once they sort of learned what was going on or asked to be taken off it. The venue had no idea what was happening. Like it wasn't, they'd said someone had inquired, but it wasn't confirmed. Interestingly enough, the people behind it have threatened legal action against two people that were doing a lot of this inquiring through Facebook and stuff.
But not you.
But not me. They did send an email out to people saying because of lies and defamatory statements, people have been attacking us and we can't run the beer festival because everyone's been mean to us.
Oh.
So they've cancelled.
So refunds are coming?
I don't think it said refunds are coming in the email.
Okay.
So I got a fake beer festival cancelled.
This bloke just loves to cancel.
That's what you get for not taking me off your fucking PR lists.
Yeah. There's a lesson there.
Yeah. Right. What else we got?
Next item here, Robbo. I'm a little worried about this one. This is a headline from r/conspiracy from The Independent. AstraZeneca withdraws COVID vaccine worldwide after admitting it can cause rare blood clots, posted 10 hours ago. What are we getting at here?
So this is a badly worded headline. Basically, AstraZeneca have updated their vaccine.
Right.
So they've withdrawn.
It's not that they're no longer supplying vaccines.
Yeah,
they've withdrawn this specific one.
They've withdrawn 2.3 and they've rolled out 3 or whatever. Right. However, there has been some news around vaccines. I think some of the side effects were understated or there's been some legal cases around that, which, doesn't suit our narrative. So let's gloss over them.
Yeah, well, there were side effects from the vaccine, which were the side effects of giving people a little bit of COVID. They were the same side effects. They were the effects of COVID as well.
Yeah. There's one in New Zealand that I'm specifically referring to. This is from rnz.co.nz. Pharmacists faulted for not warning of myocarditis risk from COVID-19 vaccine. Someone passed away after getting the vaccine in New Zealand, and I think there's been some legal cases around that.
Yeah, well, because they did have a spiel that they gave you about that when they were giving us the vaccine over here in Australia, about the risks of it. I got it. I think they stopped giving the AstraZeneca to people my age like the day after I got it.
Yeah, that's right.
But I was fine because I'm just built different. Next item here is Ross Coulthart said he received information from the Pentagon, perhaps. Oh, no, he received information that the Pentagon has a video of the Eglin UAP and it's not a balloon.
So the kind of Ross Coulthart had done an AMA on the UFO subreddit, and this is on the UFO subreddit. You'd think at this point he'd be a darling of the UFO subreddit. You read the comments of this one; they have fucking turned on him. They're just like, you guys need to start giving evidence, putting up evidence of this every week. There's a whole, little cabal of you guys either infighting or saying that you know stuff, and there ain't no UFO videos. So it's gotten to the point where even the UFO subreddit is turning on these guys.
Yeah. Well, you can't be like, oh, we've got high definition video of this thing, and then be like, oh, sorry, I can't show you the video.
Yeah, yeah.
Show us the video, Ross Coulthard.
I've got high definition video, but it goes to another school.
Yeah. Next item, the King Charles portrait.
Yeah.
It was a little bit demonic.
Yeah.
I think my favourite one was someone took the portrait and then mirrored it and put them next to each other. And they're like, look at this scary face in the middle. And I'll say there's a little scary face there.
Did it give you a little bit of a spook?
No, I'm a brave boy for the most part. But if you're looking for faces, you don't have to look too hard to see there's a little demon bloke if you mirror the painting.
Yeah, if you tweak the painting so that you make kind of a face, you see kind of a face.
Yeah.
That mirrored one, that I know that InfoWars ran that one in a couple of videos as well. People are loving that.
Yeah.
People are saying that it's blood, look at him, he's demonic. But it's more pink.
Yeah.
My first thought wasn't blood, it's really pink. The other part was a lot of people were trying to work out what the little butterfly, the monarch butterfly, represented.
Yeah, what does the monarch butterfly on the monarch represent?
Project Monarch, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
It's a wink. But look, if I'm an artist doing a portrait and I want to put some symbolism in there, what's that Garth Marenghi meme? Some artists use subtext are all cowards.
Yeah. If I'm trying to do a subtle Project Monarch wink, I would just say, here's a painting of the monarch.
Yeah.
That's my wink. If the Project Monarch people are like, we need you to put a little Easter egg in for us, I'd be like, the painting is the Easter egg, guys.
But the fact that he's put a monarch in there as some symbolism of a monarch, a literal monarch.
Yep.
That's so lazy.
Yeah.
The Garth Marenghi one is, I know writers who use subtext and they're all cowards. There is no subtext in this. It's just I don't know. Yeah, I don't think I like the portrait. I respect that it. Also, I respected that he's done something that's quite different to most royal portraits. You got to, do a thing that shake things up a bit.
Yeah.
But then I saw the literal monarch to represent the monarch, and I'm like, nah, thumbs down.
Nah.
Get in the fucking bin.
Yeah, no bag for this bloke.
No.
Robbo, the next item here comes from me.
Yeah, ignore that. I was just stoned and it took me ages to realise what you're saying.
All right.
Get over to the next one.
What did you think I was saying?
I couldn't understand it because the tweet you said was just at the cinema and the cinema advertising ad is spruiking. You said advertising ad.
Yeah.
Spruiking how highly targeted
the cinema advertising
is. I would have thought it was incredibly untargeted.
I'll read it again because I talked over you.
Just at the cinema and the cinema advertising ad is spruiking how highly targeted their advertising is. I would have thought it was incredibly untargeted.
Yeah.
It hurt my brain. And look, just for any narcs that are listening, I do have a prescription for medical cannabis, which I was consuming at the time, and I just could not understand your tweet.
Yeah. But you understand it now. In the cold light of day, you understand.
I kind of do.
The ad for the concept of cinema advertising was spruiking how targeted the advertising that they do in the cinema is, whereas I feel that the demographics of people that go to the cinema are fairly broad.
Yeah, but I think what they're saying is you have to take it in. You've turned the little note to turn your phone off happened, and now you just have to soak in the advertising, which you did, and then you talked about it.
Yeah, well, I don't have. My phone is still on during the advertising. They don't put the thing up about turning off your phone until the end of all of the ads.
Responsible people should turn their phones off. I've thought about advertising at my local cinema because they have little local ads, and we're right across the road from it.
Yeah,
and I'm like, that'd make sense. So,
Robbo, advertise at the cinema because it's they're right across the road. They can come out of the cinema and come in and have a beer and a toasty.
Long film, get a short jaw.
Yeah.
We'll workshop it.
Yeah, we'll work on it. But I don't think that you're going to be able to do Facebook style hyper targeting of people that are likely to come to the brewery. It's just going to have to be everyone that goes to see Furiosa and Mad Max Saga.
Which I'm assuming is a lot of people that have businesses.
Yeah. Next item, Robbo. Alex Jones is psychic.
Oh, fuck, this is funny.
What happened? Should I
can you
dump the audio in?
Yeah, dump the audio in.
Should I just listen to this now?
Yeah.
I'm going to show you how real I am again. And I don't keep a clock in my bedroom. For whatever reason, never have. And God said, walk into your bathroom where your phone is, where it was on. I left it in there. The one in there bothered me. You walk into my bathroom sink, and God said, get up right now. And I went, okay. And I already had a full bladder, so it's kind of like, wake up. And God's like, hey, go in there right now. It's 4 a.m. I'm going to show you how real I am. I walk in, pick the phone up, hit the button, 4 a.m. And then God goes, now I told you that about 45 seconds ago, so count down 12, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bloop, 401. I mean, God even told me, I told you that 45 seconds ago. There's 15 seconds left, boy. You watch. And I counted down, and it went bloop. And God said, I'm real, Buster.
That is wild. The audio doesn't capture that when he starts this story. He puts a thing up on the screen that says, Tucker Carlson claims Sandy Hook denier Alex Jones is a supernatural prophet who predicted 9/11.
Yeah, and the evidence... I like how he mentions that he's got a full bladder. And he's like, no, God woke me up. It wasn't that I needed to piss.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's... Like, I know everyone knows that Alex Jones is a crazy dude, but you see things like this and you're just like, what? Like, what?
The audio does not capture the wildness of his eyes as he finishes that story.
And that's the kind of thing like a 12-year-old tells people to like brag in school, like, oh, God talks to me. I went to the... And he'd just be bullied for the rest of his life.
Yep.
Like... Oh, yeah, psychic piss boy. Let's get psychic piss boy in here. Whereas Alex Jones is telling this to an audience of millions. Also, he's going through a whole legal thing still, and I think he seems to be dodging it. But anyway.
Final item here, Robbo. Has Rhys Darby proved that the Loch Ness Monster exists? I don't know. Rhys Darby is a bit of a prankster.
We were in Scotland. Oh, no, I stopped it.
Oh.
I stopped it on mistake. Shall I start it again?
Yeah, do it.
Get it around. We were in Scotland. Everybody enjoyed the lake. Someone took a photo of a rock. Wasn't a rock. It was a Loch Ness Monster. Loch Monster. Loch Monster.
I have to say, the slight misstep in playing it did rob some of the delight.
Yeah, sorry.
When I play again. When you started playing it the first time, it genuinely tickled me, though. So, Rhys Darby, Loch Ness Monster?
Yeah, they reckon there's footage of the Loch Ness Monster, and they've got these high-definition photos, and they've stitched them together, and they've seen how it moves. I looked at the...
Have you seen the footage?
Yeah, this is actually from back in March. We just missed it somehow. Yeah, I've seen the footage. I'm not convinced, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm going to say if this news dropped in March and it is now May, that perhaps it didn't set the world on fire. No, but you can look it up on his podcasts. If you just Google Rhys Darby, Loch Ness Monster, find his podcast, and then have a look at it. They're saying that you can see how it moves, and it's something in the water. If it is the Loch Ness Monster, it's not raising its little head up at all, like the famous fake photo. It's not really doing anything, really. It's probably just one of those big fish that live in the lake. Yeah, it's just
famously big fish that live in that lake.
Yeah, big fish. It's already a big fish. Probably a bit of leftover Crowley magic has made it a little bit bigger. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Is that the news?
Do we have one more?
You've just got a note here. Did we talk about a big cat recently? Yeah, we have.
Did we?
Is there a cat that you have in mind that you wanted to discuss?
Yeah, there was a big cat recently.
All right, well, play the big cat theme song.
I bloody will, Cam.
It's cool for big cats.
Better take a photo real bad. Post that perspective with the fence post or something. Baby, what do we got? Yes. Got a big cat on film.
Got a big cat on film, Cam.
Don't play it again.
Oh, I mean to play that again.
That one grows. That one I really hated at the start of it, but it grows on me.
Yeah, I think so too. Big cat and
very, very tortured at the beginning.
Yeah, I think I was doing it quietly because Emma was in the other room and I didn't want her to know that I was recording a stupid song.
Yeah, and your instincts were correct, but
I would like to maybe record it again with a bit more gusto.
Yeah. You don't need to live in fear, mate.
Well, I'm riddled with anxiety, Cam. Hence the medical cannabis mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Anxiety's
this anxiety's letting you get away with a bit of stuff, though.
There's a big cat in Ballarat.
Big cat in Ballarat?
Yeah, big cat in Ballarat. It rhymes. We should have a song about it.
Yeah.
In one of the photos, there's also like a little dot on the camera that looks like it could be a UFO. Yeah, big black cat sighted. It just looks like a slightly larger feral cat, to be honest, as they always are.
Yeah.
No, that's it.
Yeah. Hey, Ballarat, leave the big cats to Gippsland, all right?
How far is Ballarat from Gippsland?
It's a fair distance, but I will say no one likes a copycat from Ballarat.
No one likes a coppery cat. There's big cats everywhere, though.
Yeah, there are. Robbo, that's our show.
Where can people, ups and downs, I think.
Where can people find you?
Just get find me on Blue Sky, I guess. Luke Rules.
If you find the cinema in Westport, you'll know he's just across the street.
Yeah, but there's 4 streets. You'll never find the brewery.
You can find me on Blue Sky too, Sexenheimer. I'm saving my best bon mots for Blue Sky.
Oh yeah, because I noticed you tweeted something about me on Twitter.
Yeah, well, that's because I'd started tweeting about you, and it's like, well, actually, that is a little bit of Law and Order news. Do we have a Law and Order theme? There's just the Law and Order theme. Law and Order did like an episode about squatters.
Oh yeah,
and so the episode is about it's great. They pack so much shit in, so much discourse gets packed into this one episode. It's about like a fail son real estate mogul who's clearly like an Eric Trump type, and then one of the suspects is possibly his girlfriend, who's like this nepo baby actress. So they get nepo babies in there, and then they're like, oh, you know, this guy was he got into a big fight with this housing rights activist, who I have a feeling is based on the Australian housing rights activist Purple Pingers.
Right.
Who started this whole discourse in like early April about squatting. Because he's like, oh, there's a housing crisis and there's all of these empty houses. And so he started putting up addresses of houses that were empty, that have been empty for some time, and saying, hey, you know, these houses are empty. There's a housing crisis. Do the math.
Yeah, how about it?
People on Twitter got so grumpy about it, and Americans lost their marbles about it. And so then he was like, oh, you know, there's empty houses in America too. He started putting up these American addresses, and a huge discourse cycle that went on for days where people were like, well, you know, if someone breaks into my house, I can shoot them. These like homeowners, they're like, if you know someone's broken into my house, I'm allowed to shoot them. People are like, well, actually, no, if they're living in the house, they're allowed to shoot you if you come in.
That's fun.
So there's this discourse happened, and then that's early April. Early May, this Law and Order episode comes out, and it's about precisely that. Once you get past all the Nepo babies and all of this, it becomes who's in the right if someone's squatting in the house and the owner breaks in and a gun goes off. And I was like, they can't turn these things around in a month, can they? I know that there's like a short turnaround time because they did like an Israel-Palestine, like a Harvard University plagiarism episode as episode 1 of the latest season. And that was like 2.5 months after that had all happened.
Mm.
I was like, are they turning these around in a month? And then I looked at the housing rights activist guy in the episode, and he looks a lot like Purple Pingers, to be honest.
Right? Is he like in a city? What does Purple Pingers Melbourne is, isn't he?
Something like that. But he's got a little he's got a very sort of specific little mustache.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like, and this actor had that as well. I was like, that can't be a coincidence. But how are you turning these around so fast? You got to learn.
Yeah, right.
You got to learn the lines.
You got to learn those lines.
Yeah. Anyway, I tweeted about it because I wanted to tag Purple Pingers in it, and so then I had to continue the discussion. I DM'd the writer of the episode to ask him, and then I got a notification this morning that someone had messaged me on Instagram, and I was like, "Oh my god, I can't believe it!" And it was just you.
It was just me.
It was just you, and you were sending me a story of some anti-vax dancer who didn't even know was anti-vax.
Yeah, and a guy doing a bad dance.
The story was expired by the time that I clicked on it.
Oh, that's a shame, because it was funny because he's doing it at a festival and there's just normal people walking behind him and being like, ugh, like bumping into him. Ugh, what's this guy doing? Like families and stuff, and he's like doing this spiritual dance. And he's for some reason sponsored it into my feed, so I thought you might like to see it.
Yeah, thanks.
No worries.
Anyway, yeah, you can find me on Blue Sky. I'm saving my best bon mots for Blue Sky.
Good work.
And you can find Salty at artbysalt.com, even though Salty is possibly lying bleeding out in a car park right now.
Yeah. I hope he's not.
Yeah, I hope so. Oh, sorry, I had to just tell the listeners I'm sick. No, we're not going to lie. We're not going to lie for you.
Thank you to the Patreons.
Yes, especially Tammy.
Thank you. Thanks, Tammy.
See you later.
I appreciate it. See you all.
Bye.
Don't worry about a thing, except if all our world leaders are alien reptilians. I said don't worry about a thing, except maybe the fluoride in our water supply contains mind-altering drugs. Don't worry about a thing, except whether or not Port Arthur was a false flag operation in which to disarm Australia. I said don't worry about a thing. Except you can definitely hear John Lennon say I buried Paul at the end of Strawberry Fields Forever. Ooh, don't worry about a thing. Except not only did Bush do 9/11, but he also keeps the planes out in Area 51, which, let's not forget where all the aliens are. Don't worry about a thing. Except Donald Trump is clearly a woman and you just